We are getting the headlines here. You can see at the bottom of the screen, the breaking news coming across. Tony, great to have you on set as this actually happens. We are seeing that Uber should be regulated like a transport service, according to the EU court, and the ruling cannot be appealed. Is this a serious setback then for Uber?
Well, this is what we all expected. This is what goes along the line. The EU Court of Justice is the highest European Union court, so it is binding now through all 27 EU nations, and for the UK, for that matter, for the next few years as well, while EU court rulings still apply here. So this is something that Uber has been getting ready for. I think they saw the writing on the wall, and they've been agreeing, certainly in London and one other London court case, they said very recently that they agreed and admitted that they should be regulated more like what we call here in London mini cab companies, which are services that are a little different than your traditional black cabs that you have to arrange a pickup for, which is what Uber does. And they were admitting that they had to be regulated like that.
So what does this mean for Uber employees? I think one of the most interesting aspects of this is whether or not they're going to be able to get health benefits, whether or not they're going to be able to get overtime. They're now considered employees, I guess.
Well, this doesn't go to the employee issue.
I see.
This goes to a regulation issue. So this says that all 27 EU countries can regulate Uber like a taxi company. But this certainly sets a very big precedent that says these companies are more than apps, that Deliveroo, Airbnb, all these types of companies have a relationship that can be regulated in local countries. And it sets a precedent also in these other cases about benefits. There's a case here in London right now that probably will get started early next year about whether drivers are entitled to health care overtime. And these kind of things certainly build on saying Uber is a normal, regular company like any other. And this case will certainly be cited as a precedent when the drivers go ahead and say, we'd like benefits.
Clearly, this is something the company wants to fight against. What does Uber do now?
No, it's the highest court. It's like if there's a Supreme Court ruling in the U.S., you have to live with it or get laws changed below in national legislatures or at the EU Parliament. And we'll see if that happens. But I think Uber has seen the writing on the wall on this, and they've been starting to say we are regulated and working with the regulators more closely to make sure they can provide their services.
But you mentioned other companies in the so-called sharing economy. You've got the Foodoras and Deliveroos of the world. You've got Airbnb. Do you think those companies, I mean, how closely are they watching this decision? And how
I think they're all
is it?
taking, because this, like I said, this sets a precedent. It says this court determines that an app alone does not mean you don't provide the service like any other company that provides delivery services or hotel services. But in this case, it's specifically taxis. It's narrowly tailored to taxis. But when another case comes along, it'd be very surprising if the court said a hotel company does not have to follow the same rules as any other hotel company just because it's on an application rather than a physical address.
Do you think this means that we'll see a reduction then in these kind of services? I mean, are we going to see fewer Uber drivers in London? Or, well, in Berlin, there really aren't Uber drivers. You just use Uber to hail a taxi, basically.
I think you'll see these companies will continue to flourish, but they'll have to follow the rules. Uber started out very, it was a disruptive force. It didn't follow any rules, and it allowed it to grow as quickly as it did. But now it becomes a mature company. They will have to follow the same rules that other companies do.
All right, Tony, thanks so much. Great to have you here on set as this decision comes across. So just to reiterate the headlines, the EU court ruling that Uber should be regulated like a transport service. And that ruling, as Tony just pointed out, cannot be appealed. So this is the final, the highest court in the European Union ruling that Uber has to be regulated or should be regulated like a transport service. Now you'll see individual national regulators now have Uber under their jurisdiction, and possibly, if this sets a precedent, many of the other sharing economy companies, as they're called.